Okay, this is the practice test for the second half of Excel, and the name of the file is Practice Test Part 2. There's a link to it on our homepage, and the instructions are embedded in the workbook. So our first sheet has to do with dates, and let's get started. Put a formula in B2 that will always display the current date regardless of when the spreadsheet is open. So that's going to be the today function. So equals today. And it tells me that today is 10/9/2020. If I open it tomorrow, it'll say 10/10/2020. The birthday column, the birthdays in column C are date serial numbers. Format them as 14 March 2012. So let's go to column C here, and we'll select all of the birthdays. Then we are going to right-click and go to Format Cells, because there's only two choices up here, and neither one of them is the 14 March 2012 one. So go to number, click on date, and then you just have to scroll, and I happen to know that the one we want is at the bottom. So 14 March 2012, click on OK. And all of those are now formatted as appropriate dates. Put a formula in column D that will compute the age that the person will be after his or her birthday this year. Do this subtracting the year of the person's birth from the current year. You cannot use 2019, it's 2020 actually when I'm doing this, but you can't use the current year. You have to have Excel do that for you. So if I open it today, it will work based on the year 2020. If I open it next year, it'll work based on the year 2021. If I opened it last year, it would have worked based on the year 2019. So I'm going to find out what the year is. So there's a year function that'll give me the year of a date. So I want $B, $2. That'll give me 2020 in this case, at least until January. And then I want to subtract the year of their birthday. And so if they're born in 92 and they have a birthday this year, they will be 28 years old, and that's what I get. Okay, so let's just double click on our crosshairs here and copy that all the way down. And put a formula in column E that will display the logical value true if the person has a birthday this month and false otherwise. So I want to compare the month of this with the month of this. So if they're equal, then they have a birthday. So equals, does the month of $B, $2 equal the month of C5? And it does not. I have to go down here to an October birthday to find one that'll work. And let's double click on that. So there's an October birthday. The next one is down here, and then down here, and a couple more. Okay, that takes care of dates. Let's move on to the pivot table. Okay, let's move on to the next tab. The next tab is a pivot table, it looks like. So use the pivot table to determine the total value, and that's the total current value column, which would be column H. So I want that for each one of the stocks. Let me see, the total current value for all of the S stocks. So here's my type. So what I'm looking for in the end is I want I think there's 4 categories over here. So I want the 4 categories on the left side, and I want the sum of all of them over here on the right side. So that's a pretty straightforward pivot table. We just have to drag 2 things down. So let's go and insert pivot table, and let me start over with that. I want to make sure I'm in the data and nothing selected other than one cell when I start. So pivot table, now it's selected my data for me correctly. I'm going to put that on a new worksheet. And what I want is I want the type on the left. That's a text field, so it automatically goes in the rows box. And I want the total current value. That's a number field, so it automatically goes in the values box. And this is what I get. CHPNS, and let's make it look a little bit nicer. Let's do some formatting. Yeah, that's my pivot table. So that was pretty straightforward. Let's click on Fund down here, and Fund stands for functions. And we've got 3 financial functions to do. If we invest $25,000 and leave it in the bank without adding anything to it, at 8% compounded quarterly at the end of each quarter for 10 years. How much money do you have at the end of the 10 years? Okay. So the $25,000 is going to be how much I have right now. And that would be my investment amount right here, $25,000. That's my present value. And my annual rate is going to be 8%. And I'm doing it for 10 years. And it's quarterly. Usually it's monthly, but this one is quarterly. So that's going to be 4 periods per year. And the rate per period is going to be the annual rate divided by the number of periods. So 8% divided by 4 should give me 2% per quarter. Total number of periods is going to be the number of years, which is 10, multiplied by the number of periods per year, which is 4. So I'm going to have 40 periods. And it says at the end of each quarter, so end is going to be a 0 down here. 1 would be if it's the beginning. And I want to know what the ending value is. So ending value is going to be, so I'm not going to add anything to it, so there's no regular payment. Regular payment is going to be 0. And how much will I have at the end of 10 years? So that's going to be a future value problem. Anytime you want to know how much money you're going to have at some point in the future, that's future value. And let's go to our Formulas tab, and let's go to Financial, and let's find FV, and then let's fill in the values. So the rate is always the rate per period. Right down here it tells us rate per period, and this is the rate per period, not the annual rate. Number of periods is going to be the 40 over here, and the payment is always a negative number. I've got 0 right now, but if I were to put something else in there, I'd want it to be negative, so I'm going to put a minus sign in front of it. And the present value with a savings problem is also a negative number. It's the amount of money that you have put in the bank, taken out of your wallet and put in the bank. So it's going to be 25,000, and the type is going to be the 0 or the 1 down here on row 8. And click on OK. And so it looks like if I have 25,000 at 8%, it will do a little more than double at the end of 10 years. Okay. Problem number 2. If you borrow 30,000, so that's my present value, the loan amount. And if you're borrowing money, the ending balance is how much you owe at the end. That's always going to be 0, assuming you pay it off. And the annual rate is 10%. The number of years is 10 years again. We're doing monthly payments, so we're going to have 12 periods per year. The rate per period is going to be the annual rate divided by the number of periods per year. So it should be 1/12 of 10%, which is like 0.83%. Okay? And the total number of periods is going to be the number of years, 10, times the number of periods per year, 12, which is 120. And we're doing this at the end of each month. 0 means end. And now I want to find out what the monthly payment is going to be. That's going to be a payment function. So let's go to Financial. And let's choose PMT, and then let's fill in our values. The rate is the rate per period, which is the 0.83%. Number of periods is labeled number of periods down here. Present value is how much I have right now. It's 30,000. Future value on a loan is going to be the 0 here, and the type is going to be the 0 here for beginning or end. Click on OK. And it looks like my payment is going to be $396.45 every month for 10 years. And the last financial one in the purple area, we know we can afford to make monthly payments of $400 for a car, so the monthly payment is going to be $400. And if we borrow the money, we'll have to pay it back in monthly payments, so there's going to be 12 periods per year for 4 years. The annual rate is 4%. My rate per period is going to be the annual rate divided by the number of periods per year. So it's going to be like 1/3%. And the total number of periods is going to be the periods per year times the number of years, 48. Ending balance, the ending balance will be 0 after we pay the whole thing off. And we do this at the end of the month. And we want to find out how much we can borrow. That will tell us how much money we will have today. That is going to be your present value problem then. So let's go here and choose the right column. And we want PV. And it wants to know what my rate is per period. And that's going to be 0.33%. Then it wants to know how many periods. That's going to be the number 48. And the payment is always a negative number. So that's going to be negative 400. The future value is on a loan is going to be 0. And the type is going to be 0 down here as well. Click on OK. And so it looks like if that's how much I can afford to pay, and it's going to be 4% for 4 years, then I can afford to spend $17,700 on my car. Okay, now we've got some D functions over here, and we want to do an advanced filter to determine which stocks are in the S category or the H category. So the category is either going to be S or it's going to be H, so we need to put those on separate rows. Each row is connected by the word OR, and have a total current value of $10,000 or more. So the total current value needs to be greater than or equal to 10,000. So use the top rows of the worksheet for your criteria range. So I've done my criteria range. You've got to do this for both of them because each row consists a rule by itself. So this says give me all the S's that are over 10,000. This says give me the H's that are over 10,000. If I didn't put this last field in here, it would just give me all the H's, and that's not what I want. So let's go down and put our cursor in the data somewhere. And let's go to our data tab, and we're doing an advanced filter this time. And because we start out in the data, it automatically selects it correctly. Now I want to choose the criteria range, click on the arrow, and the criteria range is going to be my headings and my 2 rows of rules. Click on the arrow again, click on OK, and down in the lower left-hand corner it tells us we have 12 records selected. Okay, so if I do this, this is going to be a decount function, and what I want to do, it should give me 12. So let's go to our, actually, you know what, I'm going to clear this first, and I'm going to give this a name. So just select my data here, go to my name field, and let's call this stocks, and hit enter. Okay, now we're ready to do number of stocks. Let's go to our formulas tab, and actually we can't go to the formulas tab because there's no book there, but we can go over here and tell it that we want database functions, and I want to count the number of rows, count the number of stocks. So it's going to be decount. Click on OK, and my database is going to be stocks, and I shouldn't have hit enter, I should have hit tab. Okay, so let's try that again. Let's hit the FX, and it'll bring up the dialog box. Now I can count any field. The decount counts the cells that have numbers in them. So I can't pick column 1, I can't pick column 2, but I can pick 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. So we're doing current value, so I'll do 7, but you can actually pick any number of a column that has numbers below it. And my criteria range is going to be just what I did up here when I applied the filter. Click on OK. It should come back and tell me there's 12 of them. Okay. Here I want the number of shares, so that would be summing the 12 rows that have this data. So if I actually, I'm going to check my work here. So I'm going to apply the advanced filter again. Just click on OK here, and those are my 12. And I want to know how many shares there are altogether. So let's just drag the mouse over these, and in the lower right-hand corner down here, it says we're going to have 12,950 shares. So I want to get 12,950 for my answer. If I don't, I'm doing something wrong. So let's put the cursor in here. Let's go to our formulas tab, go to insert function, and I want dsum. Click on OK. My database is again going to be stocks, and I did it again. I hit enter instead of tab. Okay, let's. Field we're going to do is column 7, and the criteria range is going to be the same thing it was before. And now let's click on OK. And 37, oh, I did the wrong column. It doesn't matter which column I do. That's adding up the numbers in this column. I want to add up the numbers in column 3, so I blew it there. Let's go back and let's make that column 3. And it doesn't like this for some reason, so I'm going to delete what's there. I don't know how that happened. but I'm going to drag the mouse over this, and I'm going to hit OK. And I'm getting 25,100. That's not the number I got before. Let me drag the mouse over these and see what I get for a total. I get 12,950. Why am I getting 25,100 here? Now let's take a look. Well, apparently my eye-hand coordination failed me on this one. It's going down to row 4. And I did not realize that, so I just wanted to stop. Whoop, I did it again. I want to stop on row 3, click on OK, and now I finally get the right answer, 12,950. Okay. And the last one is put a formula to determine the highest total current value, column G. So I want the biggest number in here, and just kind of eyeballing it. It looks like this 66,000 might be the biggest one. I think it is. So I want to do a dmax function. So let's go here and go to insert function, dmax, click on OK. And the database is stocks. And I want the maximum number in column 7, so I got to put column 7 in. Got to pay a little more attention to that this time. And my criteria range again is going to be from A1 down to G3. Click on OK, and it is the maximum value that we found before. It's 66,188. So that's it for our advanced filter and D functions or database functions. Now let's go to the lookup. And it says what I want to do is I want to look up the cost of the item that's listed here. So this is my first column. So I'm looking up one of these 5 values here. And I want to look up the cost, which would be column 3. And I want to look up the markup, which would be column 4. So it's a VLOOKUP both times. Let's go to lookup and reference. And get down near the bottom, do VLOOKUP. And the lookup value is this. I want to find that in the first column of my table. My table array, don't include the headings when you're doing these. So A2 to D6, I'm not copying this, so I don't have to make that absolute, although if I was copying it, I would. The column number for the cost is column 3 of my table. And I need to do an exact match when I'm looking up text keys. So I got to put false in here to tell it that I want an exact match. Okay. So if I look up the cost of a stroller, it should be $145.67, and it is. If I look up the cost of wipes and hit enter, it is $5.12. Then I want to do the same thing down here, except I'm just going to column 4. So let's go to lookup and reference, scroll down, choose VLOOKUP. I am looking up what's in G2. My table array, tab down. My table array is that right there. My column index number is column 4. I'm looking up the markup. And again, I'm looking up a text key, so you always have to put false in here when you're looking up a text key. Click on OK, and it tells me that the markup for wipes is 40%. And then the last thing we have to do is some stuff with 3D tables, 3D worksheets rather. And so I have only 2 values here, and I want to add the numbers in these cells with the corresponding numbers in these cells over here. Okay, so put formulas in B3 to D6 above that will compute the totals by adding the 2015 coffee and the 2016 coffee worksheets. So that's pretty straightforward. Equals, and the first thing I want to add on is what's in B3 on my coffee worksheet, and then plus, and then let's go to our 2016 coffee worksheet and choose B3 again. So if you kind of follow your formula up here, this is the name of the sheet, then the exclamation mark, and then cell B3. And this is the name of the same sheet, or the next sheet, and same cell reference B3. I'm done. Hit enter now, and it's giving me 95,000. Let's do a quick check here. 45,000. The other one should be 50,000 then, and it is, so it looks like we're getting the right numbers. we can take this formula, because we used relative cell references, copy it all the way down, and copy it all the way across. And that brings us to the end of the practice test.